Mr. Marshall.
Mr. Speaker, would the gentleman from Fairfax yield for a question, the chairman of the Courts Committee?
Gentleman yields.
Yes, I yield.
Gentleman yields.
Mr. Speaker, I was a co-patron with the gentleman on his calculator bill. And in his statement, he indicated that it's $7 per person and a family of 4 pays $14 a month. Now, the way that I calculate 4 times 7 is 28, not 14. Would the gentleman like to explain that answer of his?
I would be happy to, because while I was sitting here, I found the chart that I was looking for, and I was trying to go off memory. In Northern Virginia, a family of 4 making $140,000, using projections by the United States Department of Agriculture on how much someone spends on food, and estimates from the IRS on how much an average family of 4 spends on goods. The additional amount spent in sales tax per year is $83. The additional amount spent on a home, if you sell a home, $500,000 every 30 years is $41. The additional amount spent on a car titling tax is $52, and then you save $87.50 in gas tax. So the total amount spent by an average family of 4 making $140,000 in Northern Virginia is $89.77. And that means that each adult in the family will be paying $3.74 more per month. So those are the exact statistics, and I'm really glad you asked that question, because I knew the speaker wouldn't call on me again to correct.
Mr. Speaker, further question?
Will the gentleman yield?
I yield.
And yields.
The gentleman is consulting sources that are outside the purview and scope of the Virginia legislature. When I look at the narrative here, I only see an indication in the public record of 2 fiscal impact statements, one in the middle of January and the other on the 4th of February. This is the 3rd of April. How is someone in the public on whose behalf we're voting and taking money out of pocket, you are, not me, going to find out what the impact of this is? And especially disturbing is the recalculation from 25 cents per 100 down to 15 cents per 100 was based on what? It seems that the amount of money is the same, but the rate had to be dropped to achieve the same amount of money. So how are we to have confidence that, in fact, all these calculations are correct when I'm a legislator and I can't even find it here? And what I really resent, and this was not the gentleman's fault, was the day that we got the original conference report, I could not send it to anybody, but lobbyists in Northern Virginia with law firms who were in favor of this were able to send it to their friends. So how is the public, who can't access official sources, supposed to have confidence that, in fact, the representations made are in fact accurate?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I answered the gentleman's question over a couple of things that you were complaining about. I guess are pretty legit. I mean, they should have a fiscal impact up online by now. I wouldn't fault you for that argument, but I don't work at the DPB. What I did was got on the internet, and in about 5 minutes, the gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Lemonnier, and I found the United States Department of Agriculture figures. We found the United States, the IRS figures, and we figured it out on our own. Now, granted, he's a math guy, I'm not, but these figures are open to the public. They are available databases. If I can figure it out, anybody can, and it comes out to $3.74 per month per person in Northern Virginia. And so those facts and figures can be found by any constituent if they wanted to spend the time to do it.
Further question, Mr. Speaker?
Will the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you. The gentleman disagreed with the statement, and I think I'm the only one who made it, that in fact we'll be paying more for roads in Northern Virginia than elsewhere. But I made that based on the fact that in Northern Virginia, we'll be paying a tax of 6% to achieve a service level of transportation. Others in Virginia will be paying 5.3% to achieve a similar service level for transportation. How is that not paying more to achieve the same service level of transportation? And instead of sharing, because the gentleman was here and he knows that the bill from the other gentleman from Fairfax about increasing the number of representatives from Northern Virginia and Tidewater on the CTB was reduced, and the gentleman also knows about representations or agreements that there won't be any change in the funding formula. So how are we, in fact, not paying more when on the surface of it, the tax went up 0.7% in Northern Virginia and only 0.3% elsewhere in Virginia?
Let me answer the gentleman. I'm glad you explained yourself, because I thought what you were saying is that Northern Virginia was paying for other people's roads, which they are not, pursuant to my explanation of Enactment 14 that makes sure that all the money stays in Northern Virginia. The reason that people in Northern Virginia are going to pay more is because they're going to get $350 million more per year in new roads, tunnels, bridges, and mass transit. The reason this bill works is because for the rest of the state, they just don't have a transportation construction problem. And they are not interested in paying new taxes and fees to build roads they don't need. We who live up in Northern Virginia, and any of us who've traveled through Northern Virginia, and any of us who tried to go to the beach or back, know that in Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia is dramatically different. Dramatically different. And my constituents have indicated to me for years now that they are willing to pay more, if and only if, under the one non-negotiable rule that shall never be broken, that all their money stays in their neighborhood to pay for roads that they need.
One last question.
Gentleman yield.
I yield.
Gentleman yields.
Is it not correct that the other monies that the localities get is fungible, and so therefore the money can really be shifted when in fact an accounting entry on a book would indicate that it's not, but in fact other monies will be shifted? And how does the gentleman get around that?
Well, that statement I asked the gentleman is not correct. And the reason that's not correct is because we thought of that. And what we've done is said that every locality has to maintain the same level of effort prior to this bill for transportation. So if a county is spending X prior to July 1st, then they have to be spending X on transportation after July 1st. And so that way you maintain the same level of effort. Thus, all the money has to be used. The other great thing is the gentlelady from Fairfax ingeniously thought, I thought, that she requires in the bill, and I can't remember where it is, that every local government has to have a separate line item for all the money they get through this program, so they can prove to us that 100% of the money was spent on transportation.
Mr. Speaker, one more question.
No. You said that was your last one.
Well, he can't trust me, so.
I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman yields.
And, Mr. Speaker, the reason I asked the question is because of the information he presented there. In Prince William County, for years now, we have undertaken projects to pay for with bonds, projects that VDOT has not funded. So I would suggest to you that we have a higher ratio of spending on transportation than other localities do in Northern Virginia. In fact, in 1989, I was part of a project that succeeded in getting a bond passed to build a road across the county without any stoplights. So are you suggesting now that Prince William County, which has had a much higher ratio of investment in roads, has to maintain that level in order to get this money? Because if we do, I think that's particularly unfair for Prince William, which was spending more per dollar raised in taxes than Fairfax was on transportation. So if they back away from this high level of spending versus Fairfax's lower level of spending, that's a penalty that's being imposed on them simply because they exceeded the average state ratio. Is that fair?
Well, I answer the gentleman that you have an internal consistency in your arguments from the last question to this question. The last question you said that you were upset with people using the money to get from this bill to pay for things other than transportation. The solution is to make sure that people maintain the same level of effort on transportation. So Prince William, after this year, will have to spend the same general amount of money on transportation it does so that we can be assured that all the new money they get builds roads and rail. Now, I know Arlington spends a lot of its money on transportation. I know that Fairfax does. I assume that Alexandria, I'm not familiar with the Alexandria budget. So everybody's doing what they can right now. And Prince William did not impose a previous grant of a commercial industrial tax on land. What they did was they decided to use other sources. So Prince William is doing a good job with what they have now. I would argue that so is Loudoun, Fairfax, Arlington, and Alexandria.
Thank you.
Shall the bill be amended in accordance with the recommendations of the governor? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 62, noes 36.
Ayes 62, noes 36. The amendments are granted.